Wow, 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 wow. Holy crap. Boys and girls, look, got tonight. I would be a little more excited, but you know what, man? I've been working all week. I'm a little trudged out, but this right here is going to lift us all up. The first of three interviews tonight, stirring the pot with Don Kincaid and my very special guest, one Logan Black. Sir, thank you for taking the time and hanging out with the fans. Yeah, you, my man. Yeah, yeah, you.
What's going on, dude? How you doing?
All right, baby. I'm gonna get a little more pumped up because that's what I do, man. We turn it on, we have fun. It's wrestling. Been a long week for myself, but now that I got Logan Black in front of me, man, you just made my week, my man. That is so cool to come on here and talk to us. This is
Of course, dude.
unbelievable.
Of course.
Now, what we like to do is maybe peel it back a little bit. We the fans, we like to figure out a little bit more about our favorite men and women in the industry. We don't have to get too personal. I stalk you. I follow you plenty on the media. So, I mean, we don't have to get too personal, but we like to open up a little bit. If you're ready for a little ride, we're ready as well, my friend.
Let's do it, man. Let's get through everything. I'm an open book. So ask
Wow.
me anything.
Open book. Well, I mean, I got some weird ass questions that I've asked way, way back behind the camera. So we won't do that stuff. But I am going to start off with uh, Logan Black. How is everything? You and the family, you're good through this whole mess we got going on?
Yeah, we're doing all right, man. We're I'm super lucky to still be working and still be collecting a paycheck, which is at this point really all you could ask for. I'm healthy. Everybody around me is healthy. I'm surrounded by really good vibes in the house. I mean, we haven't left in like a month, but like it's all good vibes. I got three really lovely pets that love us being home. I got a wife here who I absolutely adore, so we're doing all right here. I can't complain about anything. Life is good right now, so that's the best I can say.
Hey, that's fantastic. Could you tell the fans what kind of pets you got at the homestead? I'm curious
Sure,
now.
sure. So I have what do I got? Two cats and a dog. The dog is was my wife's for before we met. She has one cat as well. I had a cat from prior to us meeting as well. We come together. We shared this really tiny apartment in Queens for about 2 years. Like literally, if you open up one of the closets behind you, it's probably about the size of that. Where it's the two of us and three animals. So now we have a house. We bought a house like 2 years ago, and now there's a lot more space. So the pets are a lot happier. My cat is his name is Loki, and he is very much lives up to his name. He is destructive. He's aggressive. He's angry. If you check my Instagram stories, I usually try and capture his ridiculousness whenever he's photogenic about it. And then yeah, we got the dog and the other cat who are both whack jobs as well.
Seems like a fun time over at Homestead Logan Black, I must say.
It's a full house over here. It's a full house.
Hey, I know you're no Danny Tanner because I've seen you in the damn ring, my friend. So, uh, hey, you know, you give us the fans a hell of a ride. Not just some of the time, not half the time, not three quarters of the time. You take us on a ride every single time you walk through that curtain. Your song is jamming. The crowd is singing with your song. I mean, dude, we have an amazing time when as soon as that music hits and you come through, we're invested right into everything you're doing. And you do some kooky shit, man. There's hardcore that I've seen you do, and hey, you're not afraid to get a little bloody, if you will. But we'll dive into that a little bit later. But
Certainly.
the ride that you take us on, I like to describe it as a little dance between the fans and the wrestlers. And it could be the referees, it could be the ring announcer. We all try to do this little dance and make that whole event really fun. And I'm telling you, every single time you come out, we are nothing but a party. Is that something that you've had to develop, or has it come naturally? Or give us a little journey on that.
Sure. So it's definitely something I've had to develop because starting out, I mean, I'm sure I'll have the time to plug my podcast later on, so I'm not going to jump into that now. But on the podcast, I talk a lot about how it took me a long time to really find who I was and what I was about. And, I went through stages of trying to be like this old school wrestler who was just, trying to do all this, Memphis stuff from the 80s. And as much as I love it, it really wasn't me. And then I just started going in trying to be like, I don't know, some guy who's really taking everything off of like horror movies and horror characters. And again, as much as I love that, it really wasn't me. It took talking and listening to. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Matt Cross, M Dog 20. He's a wrestler out of the Midwest, and he made the point to a couple of us in a locker room that his psychology behind wrestling was to bring everything he loved about punk rock to an audience that might not have experienced it. Take punk rock, turn it into wrestling. And it took me a few years, even after that, to really get what he meant by that. Mm-hmm. And that's why all the things you talked about, the singing along, the dance with the crowd. Literally, I walk out there and I'm dancing with the crowd. I have developed that simply because all the things that made me happy going to shows as a kid and enjoying that scene and all the stuff that has kind of molded me into who I am, that's what I try and bring out there, and then try and bring everybody into that fun and that party as well. Like you said, I mean, my style's very in your face. It's smash, but I like to get out into the crowd in my wrestling. I can't anybody who's been to hardcore shows, they'll let you know, man, that the singer, something, there's going to be a fight, someone's coming your way. We're bringing it all out there, and that's how I want to go about doing a lot of what I do. Have everyone singing along, have everybody having fun, and bring out all the stuff that I enjoyed growing up into professional wrestling. And I mean, your response, everybody's response, especially in Western Mass, it seems to be working. So I'm going to keep doing it.
The song choice, it's to get us to move with you and do that sing-along thing. How did that song choice come about for yourself?
So my thing, man, again, it's all about developing for years and spending years behind trying to figure out what works and what is me. And I used all these songs that I really liked and songs that I think represented, my style and what I was trying to put forward. But at the end of the day, they were just really fast, aggressive punk songs that I'd say a majority of the crowd just sounded like noise. I love it, but it sounds like noise to a lot of people. So, and again, trying to look at what works for everybody else and what I really love, and seeing guys like Matt Tremont and Ace Romero, where their entrance music was something that you could not know who either of those guys are. But the second that music hits, you're singing along, and whoever walks through that curtain, you're immediately a fan of. That's when I was like, all right, I need to bring this out, but put my little flavor into it. And that's why I picked it. It's what's the name of the song? Jeez, now I'm blanking. 3 concussions in. This is what happens, dude. It's some of the Casualties, who are a New York punk rock band. Unknown Soldier is the name of the song. And honestly, ever since switching over to that, I've gotten countless emails, messages, texts, whatever, from people just going, "Yo, what's that song? I need to listen to it. I need to check it out. More than just at shows." So it took a while to develop that, but that's how it worked for me.
Dude, again, we have fun. The whole package is working. And I've only been around the independent scene for maybe, I don't know, working on 4 years now. So I haven't been around a whole lot. So talking to all of the talented men and women that I've kind of met or seen perform, or even reached out just kind of vaguely, like, hey, I seen you perform once. I don't know if you remember me. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but they still like to come on and talk to us, which is really cool. So what I like to do is maybe go back a bit, like, how did this character develop? Was it always the King of Chaos? Because you say it takes a lot of time from where you start to where you are now, an evolution of the character, if you will. And how long have you been in the game, if you could, please?
I've been in the game way too long. That's that's how long I've been in the game. It's going on, what year is it right now? 13 years. We're getting there. And I mean, to be frank with you, I didn't take it serious for the first couple of years. Didn't know how to take it seriously. So I would certainly say it's been less than that, but we're going just in terms of like the day and year that I broke in. The King of Chaos came to me. So I started out, I was given the gimmick of Slick Gomez by Johnny Rods, my trainer. Yeah, right. 3 weeks in, I walked in, I had a mohawk, a big mohawk. I didn't have tattoos at the time, but I had this mohawk and I dressed in all black. And for some reason, Johnny thought that I was slick. Cool. So I was slick. Then I became, and again, I've got into this on my podcast. Nasty Boys 2000 was the tag team that I was in. It was 2008, but we were Nasty Boys 2000. Again, from there, I had actually adopted the name, because again, going back to punk rock, I'm a huge Misfits fan. I had gone with The American Nightmare Logan Black. I had shirts and everything for years, and then one December morning, I wake up and my phone has 100 texts from different people. Because Cody Rhodes had put out that video where he declared himself the American Nightmare. So, of course, well, time to change the name up. And I thought, what was I going to use? I had no idea, so I started throwing, like, words. You just start throwing words at a wall, like, what is my style? What do I represent? What am I all about? Chaos. That was the one that stuck out to me. And I remember, I grew up really close to Coney Island, in Brooklyn, New York, and they used to do, it was like sideshow performers, like for the freak shows, what we used to call it, but it was really sideshow performers that had freak show stuff. And one of the girls there who did some of the performance, and also she was a burlesque performer, did pretty incredible burlesque shows. She had Chaos Queen tattooed on her stomach. And all I could think about was Queen, Chaos King, morphed into King of Chaos. And I'm like, all right, that's got to be it, because it's got a ring to it. It's going to work. So to that lovely lady who took her clothes off in front of me to show that tattoo, thank you so much. So an addendum to that story, I don't know how weird or deep your music tastes go, but if you ever heard of Hank Williams III, the grandson of Hank Williams, the infamous.
I come up in a country family. I'm not a country fan, so I have heard of the lineage, if you will.
Right. So Hank III had a song called Chaos Queen, apparently written about this young lady that they dated for some while. I found this out after I picked the name. Someone goes, yeah, you know that she dated Hank. And I'm like, interesting. Wrote a song about her, tattoo. It's all in the lineage of the character.
Wow. That's pretty interesting. Again, you have the brass knuckles. You have them in your mouth. You have them on your hand. You have them on your logo. You probably have them on some merch. What is with the whole brass knuckles thing?
So, again, growing up in the hardcore scene, man, New York hardcore is infamous. Anyone who's checking this out, there are so many resources, especially now on YouTube, that you can look and see what the hardcore scene was in the 80s prior to my time, obviously. The 90s, which were just before I was, too young in the 90s to be going to shows, and then what it became and like how that evolved. The New York hardcore scene is very much, if you are not like hard as bricks, you're not surviving. Like, you're not going to end up there. Like I said, I'd go to shows and there were always fights. The singer was always out in the crowd. Something was always going down and it was violence. And I never forget, like, going to shows and you'd have, like, the hardcore. They called them crews, but they're fucking gang. Oh, can I curse? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I won't stutter my language. They're fucking gangs, is really what they were. So these gangs would show up, and the entire purpose of it. This is, again, I'll nerd out just for a moment. Back in the 80s, you had all these gangs that would go to shows together because one gang had issues with the others. And, like, especially in New York, where you'd have, like, the Puerto Rican skinheads fighting, like, the Nazi punks, and, like, they'd show up and it would just be war. And, like, after a while, you had your, like, all these different sects that would go to shows. And then by the time I started going to shows, and probably a little before, it literally just turned into gangs that would show up just to, like, flex on people. They'd show up, they'd take over the mosh pit, they'd try and fight people. Like they'd literally pick people out and be like, I'm going to fight that person, and just keep hitting them until they retaliated, and then you got 10 people just housing somebody. But I never forget, you'd always have that one jackass in there with a pair of brass knucks just swinging at people. So that's where it came from. For me, it was, again, bringing all that from the scene that I loved, even the negative, bringing that into my character. You see brass knucks, you know what you're getting. I walk out that curtain with the brass knucks in my hand, the brass knucks in my mouth, and you're like, all right, I know what I'm getting with this guy. You don't have to really, figure out much about the character, because, again, I've only got, 10 minutes or so to really show you, especially if it's your first show or it's my first show in front of a new crowd, what my character is. For example, I did a show for Primetime Pro Wrestling in Washington, D.C. By the way, phenomenal promotion. You can check them out on IWTV. And I walked out. I've got, the knucks. I've got the slick back hair and everything. And I got chance of harmonica guy because people didn't see what was going on. It was a massive crowd, but a lot of people couldn't see what was going on. By the time I got in the ring, they saw the knucks, and within like 3 minutes of just like doing my thing in the ring, everybody kind of got what I was about. So again, I've only got this short amount of time to show you what my character is, especially if it's mine or your first time. So I got to put it out there and take it to extreme levels. So that's why Nux is the most extreme thing I could show.
You just explained something very vital when it comes to character in the ring. And it's part of the psychology, because you're explaining to us with what you have as your attire, your prop of the brass knuckles. Then you get in the ring, and like you said, it took about 3 minutes for them to turn on the harmonica guy, but you did your thing. You showed us what was up, and we took that ride with you. So that message, and I don't sit there, like, I am not a wrestler. I don't claim to be part of the behind the scenes or nothing. But the messages I like to portray to either the fans that are looking to, or some of the new upcomers that are looking at this, or some of your peers that are watching this, that advice, very, very solid, because now we get to read what the F is going on, what your character is, because if you don't, we don't know what the F to do with you. So,
right. No, that's the thing. I think any wrestling fan, or, go past wrestling fans, because I think a lot of wrestling people get stuck in the bubble of wrestling instead of realizing that we are a part of larger entertainment. When I'm going out on that Saturday night for PvP or Blitzkrieg or wherever, I'm not just competing against other wrestling promotions that might be running. I'm competing against the movies at the movie theater. I'm competing against whatever baseball game or football game. You know what I mean? We're competing against all forms of entertainment. So off the bat, look at all entertainment. Your favorite wrestler, your favorite character, your favorite bands, anything that is your favorite in your form of entertainment. It takes a person only a few minutes to understand what they connect with in that character and what they know about that. Every James Bond villain, within 3 minutes or so, right? You know what they're about, what their intentions are, what's going on, or they've drawn you in with enough mystery that the second that they do start giving away all of their character traits, you're sucked in and you're like, all right, I'm paying attention right now.
You seem very, obviously 13 years doing this at this point. You seem very skilled up here, very head smart on what you want to achieve, what you need to achieve, and how to achieve it, because it's very hard to create a character and make him stride and kind of, and it doesn't matter if you've been in because you're like way too long. It doesn't matter if it's been 13 years, man. Your character is effing money. And I'm telling you, it's that cusp. You just never know. This could be the time for this character and really to elevate very far.
I could hope so. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I would love to be, working just higher and higher levels, working. As it stands now, as it stands now, nobody's wrestling. But as it stands, before that, I had every weekend booked up. I was happy with where I was going. Just, continuing to move myself up. All I want to do is I want to bring my art form to people. I want to connect with people, and that's it. Anything else is, icing on a cake.
Do you find yourself with that time under your belt, the experience, Do you find yourself reaching out to promoters more, or promoters reaching out to you more, or is it kind of still a mixed bag over the course?
I'd say it's a mixed bag only because for me, I'm I'm a hustler. I mean, you see me at the merch table. I'm a hustler. I want to hit up as many people as humanly possible, get my name out there, get people noticing me, especially with like, traveling out. I don't like working local shows. I'm not shy about saying that I think that the New York, New Jersey scene is not depleted in terms of talent because there are so many stupid talented guys in New York and New Jersey. I think it's depleted in terms of who has eyes on the product and what promotions are really doing things that are, I wouldn't say against the grain, but standing out. Anybody could put on a wrestling show. What makes this promotion or that promotion different? New York and New Jersey doesn't have that. So I don't reach out to local promoters at all. I've got no real want to jump out that way. Um, I try getting out there as often as possible, and that's always hitting up promoters. And there's plenty of times where promoters will hit me up as well. It really is a mixed bag. Like I said, I'm a hustler, so I try and throw my name out there to everybody.
And you said it, man, because if it's pre-show, you're out there. If it's intermission, you're out there. You want to do that stuff, and you are as I've explained with other the men and women, you're your own brand, you're your own salesman. There's nobody to do it for you, and that's what wrestling is. If you don't push your own brand, who the hell is going to do it for you?
No, I completely agree. Again, for me, goes back to that punk and hardcore scene, man. There's You have the bands, they're chilling. A lot of times they're out in the crowd during other bands. Their set's over, boom, they're right at their merch table. And at the end of the day, and I'm the same way, if you come by and you buy something from me, that is like the dopest thing in the world. But if you want to just come by and say hi, talk about my match, or even talk about like something else, fuck it, come on by. I thrive off that interaction because if I create a connection with you, you keep coming to those shows. You keep coming to those shows, you bring more people. That's how we build a scene in wrestling and in punk rock. It's no different.
I compare music and wrestling a lot on these interviews because I think it's very similar. Do you find that the same?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I can only speak from my own experience and my own scene, but without a doubt, like music and wrestling are very, very, very similar.
Now, you talk about making the connections with the fans. Holy shit, Mr. Logan Black. I'm associated with a lot of the fans from some, different promotions from different areas. There is one guy that and I'm not saying he's the only guy, I'll tell you that right now, but this one guy you have made such a connection with. I could put anything Logan Black. He's the first one to love it, like it, say something, push it, share it, you name it. He loves him some Logan Black, and that is one of my great, great friends right now is Eric Hunting, and I know you know who I was talking about, right?
Yeah, listen, man, it goes. I mean, Eric and I go back, for years going to seeing him at shows. Just great people coming through to the table just to like chat up anything, and you do the same shows and you really form a connection with these fans. It really is about scene building. I could talk. Colin's another dude who comes out to all the PvP and Blitz shows. Colin was a dude who 3 years ago came up on my time hop, my phone, who made like the East Coast Bastard Crew jacket. Like he had a vest, a fucking punk rock battle vest with my face on it. It was the coolest thing ever. Eric comes by, is always checking out shirts, is always just bullshitting about wrestling. All of you guys, that whole crew in that area, you're just passionate about wrestling, and we all feel it. And then again, from my perspective, I'm trying to give that passion back to you, not just in the ring, but like, come on by.
You do, because not all workers or wrestlers, however you want to say it, or superstars, or I don't know what the hell you're supposed to call you guys and girls. What am I supposed to call you?
Human beings.
Thank you. Yes, all you beautiful, talented human beings. You're not all approachable when you're at the venue. And sometimes it's not because of your character, but for like real. Some of you just aren't approachable.
Yeah. I mean, it really is about personality. Some people just are different that way. And again, it's like, that's cool too. Like I know plenty of people who very much like, I love them to death, but they very much are just introverted and keep to themselves. They're there to wrestle and that's about it. that's cool too. But I think as part of the brand that I'm trying to give out to people and the character I'm trying to put out there, I'd be doing a disservice to the character and the brand to not be approachable and be, completely all the things that I respected about all the bands that I grew up listening to. I'll never forget this Most Precious Blood was a band. I'm actually just completely unrelated. I'm wearing their hoodie right now. But they were I loved them growing up, and I'll never forget seeing them play CBGBs. And their singer Rob got on stage, and he's like, "Everybody, come up close." That's always how it is. Place is packed. Come up close. Get on stage. We are no different from you guys. And that stuck with me. Lou from Sick of It All is all about that. Oh, man. The singer from Terror, Chris Bennett, is going to kill me for forgetting the singer from Terror's name. He's like legit like King Hardcore. Always like, yo, get up here. We are you. Let's make it happen. So again, it'd be a disservice to the brand to like ignore you guys personally.
You've talked PvP, you've talked Blitzkrieg, you've talked WMW. Could you please, because I mean, traditional matches are amazing. I dig that. That's what I grew up on. The Morocco, Ivan Putski, Bob Backlund. You can name them all, and that's kind of what I was growing up on. WCCW with the Von Erichs and the Freebirds and such and such. But then there's hardcore, and then there's deathmatch. Okay, but hardcore, ooh, son of a bitch, you seem to be very comfortable with hardcore. Could you take us on a little, maybe a little journey on how you got into the hardcore part? Because not all wrestlers want to get in that mix at all.
Sure, and I don't blame them for not wanting to do it. It has certainly taken a lot of mobility out of my body. So for me, I grew up obviously in New York City, which was a huge ECW territory. My uncles growing up were all huge wrestling fans, but they were massive ECW fans. To the point where they would stay up, I mean, they were watching it themselves, but they'd stay up till 1 a.m. They'd tape the MSG network that ECW was on and send me the tapes. I was in second or third grade getting ECW tapes, watching Francine pull her skirt down to reveal franchise on her ass. So I was always a fan of hardcore wrestling. Grew up completely as a fan of it, and always wanted to do it, and found the opportunities here and there to get it done. I've been lucky enough that hardcore and like deathmatch wrestling is a niche market that I've kind of been in and out of, because I mean, it's the issue with it for me is that I don't want to be pigeonholed as a guy who only does hardcore matches. Like, I'll give you the example. I think Matt Tremont is one of the best professional wrestlers this business has ever seen, and I say that without like, I put him up there in like the top 100 of all time. But I feel like a lot of people pigeonhole him as a hardcore wrestler or deathmatch guy because he's such a brilliant guy when it comes to that. He's definitely top 1 or 2 of the deathmatch wrestlers of all time, but he's still a brilliant worker. And I didn't want to get pigeonholed as that guy who always has to go out there and always has to bleed, because I spent so long trying to really hone my craft and be able to do it in the ring with any style. I mean, you guys haven't seen it, but I could do lucha libre. Like, I've been trained in lucha. I can do a lot of those crazy holds. I can fly when I need to. It's just, why do that when, I've got other options.
Right.
I just really enjoy, hardcore and deathmatch stuff. And for me, it's just been about doing something that I enjoy doing and something that I know that I'm good at. I would love to bring a lot of that to, because I've done some of it in Western Massachusetts. I would love to bring more of that to different areas that don't see it. Like, I'd love for Washington D.C. and primetime pro wrestling. I'd love to do some craziness over there. Like I said, I'd love to do it in Western Mass and really like bring out something crazy. Excuse me. I know I've suggested to a couple people doing a barefoot Legos match out there. Really want to do it because, again, Again, look at your face. If I can get that face out of everyone in the crowd, we've won. You know what I mean? I want to bring it to different areas because I want to show, how versatile of a performer I could be.
Well, when you bring when you bring an idea, because you have to bring it to the promoter, but when you bring an idea of hardcore wrestling to a promoter, what is usually their reaction?
It depends on where it is. So, like, a lot of promoters are open to it because they don't have a lot of guys who are willing or open to do it.
Okay.
Like in the Northeast, you get a ton of it. Like Jersey, lots of guys. So it's the hub of deathmatch and hardcore stuff. So throwing it out there is nothing no big deal. But throwing ideas and being like, hey, I'm willing to do this, especially when you're a guy who for years wasn't doing it. It's like, oh, okay, let's throw you in there. Let's see what you got. Yeah, it's not really, nothing too crazy unless you have a promoter who's really not at all interested in doing something like that, which is also understandable because again, like it
Right.
is a niche market.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now hardcore wrestling, and let's take deathmatch out of it because that's a whole different art in its own. But hardcore wrestling, it has such a question mark on it because, and I know wrestling, anything can happen at any time, but when you're in a traditional match, once you cross that line into the hardcore, that question mark becomes very bold, very louder. Like things can really happen at a drop of a dime. Is that part of it? That little extra adrenaline rush that like, man, shit could just go down and I'm ready for it.
Yeah, I think again, it all goes back to bringing punk rock to the
Mm,
mainstream of wrestling. Which is again one of the reasons why I genuinely enjoyed doing the hardcore stuff because a
mm,
lot of traditional wrestling fans don't see it, or a lot of traditional wrestling fans don't like or respect hardcore or deathmatch stuff, and that's cool. Like it's art. Enjoy what you enjoy, but I really enjoy the ability for me to take the little bits of all of that, bring it into a match that might not necessarily, might not represent it,
mhm.
blend that stuff together and have people go, no, that's how you do it right. That for me is what I
Yeah.
enjoy.
Now I had to stalk you. I had to follow your face page a little bit so I can catch some pictures because I put a couple pictures, throw some music on after we're done here, and then I
Sure.
throw it out on the YouTube.
Of course, yeah.
So as I'm scrolling on your pictures, I see a picture of you and Dirtbag Dan, and I lost my ever loving shit. What is that all about? Please.
Which picture of me and Dirtbag? Because I'm sure there's plenty.
It was very recent. It was very recent, and it had a name of a tag team. You never know, or was something at Outlaw Wrestling or something
Okay,
out
yeah.
out.
Yeah, so last year I had went to this. They called it a seminar, um, or they called it a tryout, but it ended up kind of being a seminar in PA for Outbreak Wrestling,
Outbreak.
and I felt out of place just simply because like it definitely wasn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
But the guys who stood out at the tryout were able to be part of the show later on. I stood out on the tryout, so they put me on, and Dirtbag was booked on the show. I wrestled shows with Dirtbag for years. Him and I were super close. I love Dan so much, and seeing him there was great. It was like the first time we had seen each other in years. But that's how wrestling is. You don't see people for years. It's as if no time had changed.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, me and
The
Dan go back years.
the tag team. I'm very curious, intrigued, if you will. What's the name of the tag team that you previously had?
Oh man. You know what? I tell you if I can remember. I genuinely don't remember. We did tag for a while. Um, Tag for a long while. I think we went as the American Nightmare, and then once I split off from Dan, I used that as like my singular nickname. But I think we
Okay,
were the American Nightmare for a bit, and yeah, like we
that's crazy.
tagged for years. And then there's one death match that we had against each other that like I'm sure if I watch it back, it's like because it's up on YouTube, but I'm sure if I watch it back, I'm gonna be like, oh, that was terrible. But for the time, it was a lot of fun.
Man.
Funny story about that match in particular. So yeah, we had an absolute blast. I think I threw Dan in an overhead press against a wall because the ring was like up against a wall in like this warehouse that we were having. I threw him and fucking splat and fell. But the other thing, he took what do you call it? The fluorescent light tubes, smashed them on my back, and at the time I had a singlet I wore, and the straps were down because of course I was doing the Jerry Lawler comeback. Smashes in my back, and the glass rolls down the singlet and bunches up. Well, it wasn't a big deal. That was, I mean, it sucked getting hit, but it all trickled down and bunched into like my ass. So, right, I'm walking backstage, and it was fine. I go backstage. I'm getting cleaned up because I'm all cut in my arms and everything. And Mike Verna, who is a professional wrestler out of New York, he wrestles all over the place, Beyond and all that stuff. He was in the locker room too. He goes, "Man, I don't know how the hell you guys do it," and gave me like the athlete slap on the ass, not knowing that the glass had bunched up all over there. So I spent the better part of that night pulling glass out of my butt in the shower. Life of a hardcore wrestler.
See what happens, boys and girls? You ask him what the hell was about him and Dirtbag Dan, and we, not that it's funny, by no stretch of the imagination.
No, it was hilarious.
And now we got to find out and hear a story about Logan Blass getting glass smacked in his ass by the man of steel himself, Mike Verna.
Right. If anybody's seen Mike Verna, he's like carved from stone and is like 0% body fat. So that is a massive meaty hand slapping ass.
Sorry, I'm laughing at your demise, sir.
No. All good, man. Listen, I laugh at it too. It's the only way you survive.
Oh man. Okay, so let's get away from the hardcore stuff because
Sure.
I did want to dive into that because that shit intrigues me.
Sure.
So you start off. I heard Johnny Rods. I could say he's your trainer. Is that correct?
You could say that. It doesn't necessarily make it true. Johnny hasn't trained anybody since I'd say the late 90s, early 2000s. Johnny has a school. He certainly runs a school. But Johnny doesn't get in the ring anymore. The way Johnny's school works is that he has all of his students, and whoever shows up, whoever has the most experience, runs classes and trains people. So Johnny never got in the ring with me except for when, like, a newspaper or, like, News One here in New York would, like, come do, like, a story on Gleason's or on Johnny. He'd come in the ring, and it was the same thing every time. And if you talk to anybody from Gleason's, they'll tell you the same thing. Johnny would get in the ring. He'd give I woke up, give you a handshake, and he'd give you, like, the Porky Pig Mr. Mato flip, like the judo flip. Boom, you take that, and then he'd, like, grab the top rope and do, like, a weird Samoan spin kick to you. And you had to sell everything big and, make Johnny look good. That's all he ever did in the ring with anybody. So Johnny really didn't train me. I give my training to a couple of other people who, like, took their time and worked with me. One of which being Will Ferrara from Ring of Honor. We broke in around the same time, but he did have more experience than I did. So, like, he certainly showed me a bunch of things. A guy by the name of Pete Simmons. He doesn't wrestle anymore, but, Pete was always really good to me. This guy by the name of Mike Inferno, who I don't know how that guy didn't get a contract. He was, like, 6'1". He looked like Brock Lesnar, but a little bit smaller. Like, he was that big and muscular and tattooed. No idea how he didn't get signed, but it was Johnny. Nobody got signed. Yeah, those are the guys who looked out for me. Chris Minion, who now wrestles under another name, but I'm not going to give that away because he's masked. He really looked out for me as well. So there were a lot of people who helped me out, but John didn't do much of anything. But I did break in at his school.
Now, from having multiple people part of your career, do you find that you get, a little bit of something from each one? They all have kind of their own little flavor to incorporate and really mold you as a wrestler, or is it a little similar, or how does that end up kind of working?
Cool. So the way Johnny Rod's school ran was it was like a one size fits all training style. Everybody learned the same style, the same everything, and so all the training I got there was literally like it was the exact same thing. It was like, dairy free is like here's your cone from same from everybody. It was only getting out there and learning from other schools that I really started to pick up different styles. Like going to Mike Quackenbush seminars really helped me develop a different style. Training under the Maximos for a while. Joel Maximo, like despite all the interesting things that I could say about that situation, I really did, like, I got to give credit. I learned a fuck ton at that school in terms of learning how to, work a different style, work lucha libre. I learned how to work the opposite side. Going to lots of seminars helped me out. Training at Cheeseburger School a bit, Worldwide Dojo. So that's really where I picked up all the different styles, because if you look at I say this to anybody who's like fresh out of Johnny Rods' school, they all wrestle identically. Because it very much is like everyone learns that very same 1973 style. You hit the ropes by leaning into it a certain way. You bump, you learn the side bump, which nobody does it. Nobody does the side bump. I'm glad I learned it because it's helped me not like, walk still upright for some, reason. But like a lot of things, like it's as an outdated style that I feel like it's good to learn your basics there, but you got to get out there and try something else.
You have to, because there's different, everybody's, and like you said, he has his own style, and it's very similar from student to student. Everybody has a style. Not everybody's versatile in their techniques and their training. So like Mr. Black said, get out there, get to different places, because the experience, it all adds up to this huge package, and you get to be molded as a more experienced, a more mindset. Your mind. Maybe I use the word mindset way too much in these, but
no, I think you use it just fine.
If you don't have it, the physical part and what you can do in the ring, that's only half of it, man. This is the other half. And I say it's half of it because if it's not there and you've had a shit day and you take that shit day and incorporate it into your match, you already know by the time you finish that match, it's going to be a shit match.
Oh, certainly. I think one of the better advice that I could give to anyone who's like trying to break in or like just starting out, and again, because my podcast focuses very strongly on that time period, is either find yourself a school that has like a direct line into wherever your goals are, or go all over the place, go to tons of seminars, get every single flavor, and then find out what flavors you like to mix. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Because without it, wrestling is like the neck of the guitar. It's a never-ending thing here. You can't finish the guitar. That's why, it's just crazy. So wrestling is very versatile. It's very complex, which I don't think people really get how complex it really is and what it takes.
It certainly can be.
Now, I want to talk about your podcast, but first, being complex and wrestling and what it takes. You put out these videos, and please tell us on how often, is there a schedule, and what they represent and what you're trying to do with the videos that you put out on Facebook. That's where I see them anyways.
Sure. Which videos are we talking about?
You're in the ring and you're trying to, it seems that you're trying to give guidance. Now, this is not this is the way I like to do it. I'm not saying this is the correct way or the best way. This is the way that I would present it and how I've learned it over the course.
So, those videos, I had done them for a year. It was a weekly series called The Airing of Grievances, where it was pretty much me picking out all the little things that I saw being done either on shows or in training that, like, again, just me personally, I didn't like. Like, the first video was me talking about how people will take a shoulder tackle, which is a spot you see in so many matches, and people will just lay down, where if you really think about it, the goal here is not to have your shoulders on the mat. That's Wrestling 101, Part 1, Section 1. Don't put your shoulders on the mat. So why would you not pop your shoulders up so you're not in a pinning predicament? And from there, it was literally me just picking things apart every single week and giving advice as to what I see as, a way to do things that might improve the basics of your game.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I did that for a year, and that was kind of the lead-in to the next creative venture of mine, which was the podcast.
Okay.
But my thoughts and psychology behind everything in terms of all those little training notes is, and I make this point to a lot of people because I'll get Chris Benny, who's my tag partner, my life partner, my best friend. I love the kid to death, but he's a pain in the ass when he wants to be. And he'll sit there in the car sometimes when we're riding places, and he will go like, oh, and he'll pick apart one of the videos and be like, oh, but John Cena does it like this. To which I respond, well, John Cena also is a millionaire who can go into the ring, take a dump right in the center of the ring, and the crowd's going to buy it. So when you and I are like John Cena, we cannot make these mistakes. But until we get there, why not try and tighten the screws on every little bit of everything? Joey Ryan is the best example I can give because Joey will tell you this too. Joey says that he does seminars sometimes. He goes, but the first thing that he'll tell any of his seminar classes is, I'm going to tell you a whole bunch of things, and then I'm going to follow none of my own advice in the ring fight. But it makes perfect sense because Joey is over. Joey has a niche, and he has his brand, right, and he's working with what he's working with, and doesn't necessarily have to follow all of those things because he's already past that. Joey spent years as an incredible in-ring performer in Southern California, and I'd be crazy to say he did tons. He was on TV. He was doing tons of stuff, but he was Joey Ryan until Dick Flips happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the guy bought a house on Dick Flips. He's got shirts in Hot Topic off Dick Flips. So, again, my advice with all of those videos was never, don't do this or this is wrong. It was literally tighten up the screws, especially if you're, green. But fuck it, if you could get over, who cares about any of this stuff? That's the rule in terms of anything. The Undertaker and Bray Wyatt both teleported this past weekend from place to place. Who cares about the proper way to do a headlock takeover when you're at that level? Who cares? Teleport. I'm all for it.
What a prime example. I think you nailed it right on the head on that one.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I mean, it's really as simple as it is. When you are at that level, you could do anything and make anything work. It does not matter if your shoulders are down for a shoulder tackle or you rainbow on a clothesline that someone's ducking. Who cares? You're over enough that you could teleport.
Now, if people wanted to go check out those videos, how could we go look back? Because you said you only did them for about a year. How could we go check them out?
Sure. I mean, they're all over my social media. If you search under literally all of my social media, which would be King of Chaos NYC on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, look under the hashtag airing of grievances, and they should all come up. There's about, I don't know, say 48 or 49 of them. So it was about a year that I did it. And again, that all found its way into the next creative endeavor, which was the podcast.
Now, the podcast, was it because, I started these Skype ones because I couldn't travel and go see the men and women that I wanted to interview. And I've only been doing it for a little bit and sporadically. It's not like I had a crazy schedule and trying to really fit a bunch of people in and stuff. Then this whole virus thing happened. I am doing 3 a night, 4 on Saturday, 5 on Sunday. What the F am I doing, Mr. Black?
I mean, you're hustling is what you're doing. I can...
Now, the podcast, was that created because of the whole situation we got going on? Or was this already something that was in your head and you already had planned out anyways?
So I had wanted to do a podcast probably, I'd say 2 or 3 years ago. I had bought a bunch of equipment on the advice of Mark Adam Haggerty, who I've been friends with for years, and I'd hit him up. Oh yeah, great dude. One of my favorite people in wrestling in general. But he had given me, because he was a podcaster, so I go, hey dude, how do I get started? He gave me all this stuff to order, all this hardware to get. I buy the hardware, and it doesn't work. So I'm sitting there going, nope, this is an omen. I'm not going to do it. So all that equipment is still sitting in my base, except for these headphones were the headphones that came with it. So that was about 2 to 3 years ago. Then probably, I want to say 6 months ago, I was like, I'm doing the airing of grievances. I enjoy doing that stuff, but like, I want something that is a bit more. It's just trying to get out there with different stuff and connect differently, because I'd be filming these at shows that I was on, and like it became more stress than it was worth. Whereas like I really wanted to do podcasting, so I literally just like searched up like what could I do with like next to no equipment for podcasting, and I picked and choose what worked for me. I had the headphones, it worked well. Skype calls you could record, it's in the top left, which is how I do my interviews. I know very basic audio editing that I can play around with things, and I bought a really nice microphone. So I was like, all right, let's make a go of this. And I had a couple of ideas for concepts, threw them at my closest friends, and the one they thought was most original and most interesting was focusing on the first year of wrestling, the year one wrestling podcast. So with that, I jumped in and I started sending out feelers to people I was close with in wrestling, just seeing like, hey, would you be interested in this? For the most part, it was all an enthusiastic yes. And it just went from there. I think the first episode came out, I want to say like 2 weeks prior to quarantine. And then I, put them all out as it went. And then at this point, like you said, like you're doing like all these interviews every weekend. I've got a couple of interviews every week now because everybody in wrestling is home. So I've got at least 15 to 20 interviews just waiting to be released, on the weekly basis that are all coming out. All really good stuff that I'm super psyched for. Like, again, I needed another creative avenue outside of the airing of grievances. One that I could be a bit more positive, because I think in general, a lot of the airing of grievance videos, and this is another thing why I think that, like, for me, I started to not sour on the idea, but kind of lose a bit of interest, was that I felt like I was coming off as negative in some of them, and I'm not a negative person. Like, I'm very much of a very positive lifestyle, very much about positivity and spreading positivity. So I wanted a podcast that reflected that, where a lot of people are, overcoming, that first year, all the hardships, and what it has shaped them into now. So people could see how somebody who doubted themselves and, really felt, came from nothing and now, boom, have produced, all this stuff in the world of wrestling. Create that positivity. That's what I wanted to put out there. And that's, hopefully what I am putting out.
That's an awesome concept. And I know many of the fans that have listened to the episodes you've put out. You have Davey Ann. I love Davey Ann. I mean, that's gonna be amazing. But now your format, like you said, is based on year one, the hardships and trying to just get in there. See, now my format, I'm all over the place. We talk whatever. We try to talk origins. It really could be anything, because I don't write nothing down or any of that stuff. So I'm a little all over the place. And my runtime, it could be 30 minutes. I just did one with Ichiban from Test of Strength, a very brand new guy just getting into the business, masked wrestler.
Right.
It only lasted 2 minutes, literally 2 minutes.
Really?
Yeah. So again, my format is all over the place. It's kind of wacky. We just go off the cuff. You're looking at year one and some of the sacrifices and the struggles it takes to get through that first year. What is your runtime? Have you had on just wrestlers, or is it open for referees and ring announcers and such like that?
So episode number 3 was Mark Adam Haggerty. I had him on, so he was an announcer. I'm interviewing Joe K next week, who's like the New York, New Jersey GIF guy. Like everybody, if you're a Twitter user for wrestling, you've seen his stuff. He like legitimately has like, made his name in wrestling off that, which I thought was an awesome story to tell. Like this kid who literally came from absolutely like nothing, just being a fan, and boom, companies are hiring him to come there and make gifts at their show.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to take people who have interesting stories in wrestling. It doesn't necessarily just have to be wrestlers. So I do want announcers. I definitely want to get referees in there. Ref Gina is on my short list, but I know she's the best. But I'm also sure she's gonna kind of be like, "Why do you want to interview me?" So, right, just her personality. But I think it'll be great to have her on.
That was a good imitation, actually. That was pretty good. Oh my God, she's gonna kill me for that. But that was kind of good right there.
She's wonderful. I'd love to have her on. And yeah, like I just in general want to be able to bring out the stories of people in professional wrestling, from all different positions so that everybody can kind of tell their stories so that no matter who's listening, they could, again, like we go full circle going back to me attaching myself to all the things from punk shows. People can attach themselves to the different aspects of each character or each person or one specific one. Like I fully understand, like Davian was the one that just came out this past Wednesday. That's a story that a lot of people could jump onto, but plenty of people just might be like, oh, like this girl grew up in Massachusetts in like the middle of the woods. I got nothing in common with her. Fuck that noise. But then like Dan Moff was my first episode. That's a dude from the city. He's from Jersey. He trained in Brooklyn and Queens. Like someone get behind that. It's all about like whatever you can connect to, and that's kind of
Yeah.
I want to bring all the different stories out.
That's kind of what I'm trying to do too is mix it up because it's not just those two people going against each other in the ring, man. You've got announcers, you've got referees and other people behind that, but it takes so many people just to make one show happen. And that's why I would reach out to all of them and I'm like, hey man, when I started trying to get the referees on, they're like, wait, I mean, that's cool, but why? And I'm like, hey, we're celebrating Zebra Week.
Yeah, man, it's all about telling stories. If people got interesting stories, for everything, why
Yeah.
not bring it out there, man?
Now, speaking of stories, and one Mr. Benny, I got to make sure he's not behind me. One Mr. Benny, you said he's your best friend, life partner, the whole nine yards, your Goomba, your brother, and he's also a pain in the ass. Could
Yes.
you give us a cool little antidote, us the fans, maybe a little road story? Because I know you must have a ton of them. Maybe
Oh
one you could
man.
share with us,
Yeah.
pretty please?
I have tons of stories with Chris. So everybody knows that the way that wrestling works, we're on the road, we're driving hours upon hours upon hours. After a show, everyone's tired, everyone's beat up, but you gotta stay awake. You gotta keep the driver awake. We're lucky when Chris drives. Chris he stays awake. He's a monster. He's a road warrior. But we always, when things are getting real bad and we're all real tired, we do karaoke in the car,
Uh-oh.
or sing-alongs. And Chris's go-to every single time is always, and he get word for word, is "Fuck Compton" by Tim Dog, which, if any of you don't know, that song literally started the East Coast West Coast rap battle. Like it was nobody had said anything to anybody. This dude from the South Bronx named Tim Dog comes out and literally just like shits all over NWA and shits all over West Coast rap. Chris, it's brilliant. My Getting Jiggy with It is my song. I can get that from beginning to end without any flaws. In fact, on circling back to the podcast, on my episode with AEW Women's Champion Nyla Rose, we were recently at a wedding together, where that song came on, and of course I jumped on the dance floor and started rapping it. And podcast. Apparently, somebody that might get released at some point. So that's one thing about Chris. I'm trying to think of another like ridiculous Chris story because there are quite a few. For the most part, when you get Chris together with like, all right, here's the one. So Chris, like I said, he likes to bust my balls and likes to likes to just fuck around as often as possible. I think we were coming back from, where was it? Might have been, it was Cleveland. We were coming back from. It's like 2 a.m. We find one of the truck stops that are open, because everyone's got to use the bathroom. So he starts up this whole conversation with the woman. It's literally one woman working in this entire truck stop, because it's like 2, 3 a.m. Starts up a conversation with her while we're all in the bathroom, just being friendly, because we're in like the middle of Pennsylvania, which is like pretty much Kentucky. Really, it's how it is. Pittsburgh is on the west, Philly is on the east, and in the middle is Alabama. So, but she's a really nice woman, and just talking to her. We come out of the bathroom, and he's like laying down this like ridiculous story for her about like, who we are and wrestling and stuff like that. And she's just going in about like, oh, do you guys know John Cena? Which is always the question. Do you know John Cena or Hulk Hogan? It's like, yup. And just going off and off about that. And all this stuff. And it's like, it's me, Slade, and there's one other worker with us. And we're all coming out of the bathroom, and Chris is talking to this woman and like buying like a Monster or something. And just like, yeah, no, like, we're wrestlers, we're torn, we're all and like literally just looking to pop himself on it. A lot of what Chris does, he does to pop himself. And it always ends up getting us going, which is, it's a similar story to, I had done a show years ago, and afterwards it was in Chicopee, and we went to Hooters afterwards because we all wanted wings. And Retro Anthony Green was with us, and the waitress had come over and, gave us a sob story, which, she was working us, but AG's whole thing was like, oh yeah, we're wrestlers. Points to me and goes, oh, that's Michael Elgin. And like each person at the table was like some like famous wrestler that he was just playing off on. This woman didn't know who the hell anybody was. But yeah, Chris's story was very similar to that.
I just a little snippet of footage that would be amazing to watch just from a distance. Oh my God, it sounds hilarious.
I definitely, on my Instagram, there's definitely clips of like the weird shit Chris will do on the road. I definitely like it. I don't think it was on there. It might have been on a story, but I definitely have him doing Fuck Compton. And yeah, just lots of other stuff Chris will do here and there is all over my Instagram.
Mr. Black, you have been so open and sharing, and I know I barely scratched the surface. I already know that because if you have more than a decade over you, I mean, there's got to be way more than I never even touched. So, I mean, maybe in the future, hopefully, you don't want to talk to me too very soon. Maybe in the future, we could do a follow-up. I mean, if that's a possibility.
Dude, I'd love to. Trust that I have a lot of ridiculous, insane, stupid road stories that I'm always open to sharing.
Yes. See what I did right there for us? Oh, my God. Yes. Oh, man. Mr. Logan Black, the King of Chaos. Today you weren't really chaotic. You were very chill. You were open and very sharing with the fans and telling us some cool little anecdotes at the end, man. That's some cool stuff. I really appreciate it.
Well, I'm happy to be on here. Honestly, this was a ton of fun, man. You're doing something really awesome here.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. But before I let you go, how do us, the fans, get to follow that new podcast you got going on?
Sure. So first of all, you could check me out on all social media at King of Chaos NYC, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Follow me for the podcast, the Year One Wrestling Podcast. We go and we talk to tons of your favorite wrestlers about breaking in, what that's about. Again, AEW superstar Nyla Rose was a guest. Davey N, superstar Dan Moff, MLW's Mark Adam Haggerty. So many people that I still have. We're only 6 episodes in. So I have so many people just waiting to get those episodes out. Oh, you know what? I'll drop it here first. This next week's episode is Evil Kip Stevens. That's the one. That's a really fun episode. That's going to be dropping this coming Wednesday. But you could check that podcast out. It's on, let's see, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Podbean, Probably a couple of other formats too, because when I started out, I put it everywhere. So it's on whatever your preferred podcasting platform is. It's probably on there. Look it up, Year One Wrestling Podcast, and then on social media, it is Year One Pod. It's year the number one pod. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I put out. I put out stuff almost every day, just giving people updates. And yeah, just stay tuned to what we're doing. We're doing some really fun stuff with that podcast.
You sound very, very stoked to be doing that podcast.
Dude, you have no idea how much I love doing it. These interviews. The last couple of interviews that I did have been so much fun. I've had a blast doing them. So like, I can't wait to put that stuff out and get the response.
That's what we do, man. When I get a name, I'll pop the F out and I'll yell it, and my family look at me like, so fucking what? And I go, you don't understand.
It's all about passion, man. We got to put that passion out there. It's electric.
Logan Black, the King of Chaos. It's been an amazing hour, 5 minutes. I didn't think you were going to stomach me for that long. I really didn't.
We could have kept going, man. It's all good.
Hey, that's all right, because I have a busy schedule tonight, tomorrow, and such. So what I like to do is really turn them over on the same night. So if I go an hour and a half or 2 hours, then I don't get that time to really put them out in a timely manner.
I get it. Trust me, I get it, man, with the pie. I try and keep my podcast to less than 50 minutes. I get it.
Oh, okay. All right. Man, this was Stirring the Pot with Don Kincaid and my bare knuckle, my brass knuckle, very special guest, one King of Chaos, Logan Black. Thank you, my man. It's been an absolute pleasure.
My pleasure, dude.